Hi guys, it's Grace. I go to Concordia. It's in Ann Arbor, and I wanted to read a book to you today. This book is called The Seven Silly Eaters, and this is one of my family's favorite books. And I asked my younger sisters. I have four younger sisters, and I said, "What was your favorite book? What's the best book?" And they said this book. So I decided that I would read it for you guys because it's a really good one. Okay, it's called The Seven Silly Eaters. Right. It says, not so long ago, they say, a mother lived just like today. Mrs. Peters was her name, her little boy was named the same. Now Peter was a perfect son in every way, except for one. Do you see Mrs. Peters right here? And this is her son. When Peter was just 1 year old, he did not like his milk served cold. He did not like his milk served hot. He liked it warm, and he would not drink it if he was not sure it was the proper temperature. You see him? He would only drink it if it was a special temperature. It couldn't be too hot or too cold. Okay. Now, Mrs. Peters did not mind. She was a mother sweet and kind, and when his milk spilled on the floor, she patiently prepared some more. She'd take the bottle from the shelf and chuckle softly to herself. What a silly sort of eater is my darling baby Peter. See the picture? Right. When Peter had not yet come to, another baby, sweet and new, was born. Dear Lucy, small and fair, with big blue eyes and curly hair. But long before this child was grown, she had opinions of her own, of what she'd eat and what she'd not. She hated milk, both cold and hot, and warm was worst of all. Instead, whenever Lucy dear was fed, she bellowed for pink lemonade. Not from a can, oh no, homemade. Okay, so as you see, there's Peter Peters, who only drinks warm milk, and then there's baby Lucy, who only drinks lemonade. Pink lemonade. Woo! Okay. But Mrs. Peters didn't mind. She squeezed each lemon to its rind while mopping milk up from the floor and patiently preparing more. She'd take the lemons from the shelf and giggle softly to herself. What a silly pair of eaters are Lucy Dear and Peter Peters. You can see in the picture, Mrs. Peters is making pink lemonade for Lucy, and she has milk on the counter for Peter, and she's taking such good care of her children. There's Peter and Lucy and their parents in the doorway. Okay, this is a good picture. Now Lucy grew and Peter grew, till he was 3 and she was 2. And who was one? Why, little Jack, with eyes so brown and hair so black. A happy baby, never cross, but all he'd eat was applesauce. Oh my goodness! So she has Peter, who only drinks milk, and Lucy, who only likes to drink lemonade, and then little Jack, who only eats applesauce. Peter, Lucy, and young Jack had another brother, Mac. Mac was charming, round, and plump, but if his oatmeal had a lump, Mac would dump it on the cat. And Mrs. Peters didn't like that. You see him? He's dumping his applesauce on the cat. That's not good. But since she loved her children four, she'd strained she'd strain the oatmeal 2 times more. She'd take it from the pantry shelf and mumble What a foolish group of eaters are my precious little Peters. Oh, they're such picky eaters. All right. Before another year was through, who came along? Mary Lou. She was darling, sweet, and bright, and had a healthy appetite. That is, as long as she was fed soft and squishy homemade bread. Poor Mrs. Peters got no rest, but she still did her very best. She'd take the flour from the shelf and mutter feebly to herself, "What a fussy bunch of eaters! Oh, my lovely Peters!" Let's look at this picture. We have Mrs. Peters and Mr. Peters, and she's making this bread for Mary Lou. And then we have Peter, who only drinks warm milk, and Lucy, who only drinks pink lemonade. And then we have Jack, who only eats applesauce, and Mac, who only likes oatmeal, and then Mary Lou, who only likes bread. And so all of her kids are very picky eaters. Okay. Ready? A year rolled by, the children grew. They really are a splendid crew, sighed Mrs. Peters, pinning pins and diapering her brand new twins, little sisters quick and smart, impossible to tell apart. But Flo liked poached eggs, Fran liked fried, and if she mixed them up, they cried. Tired to the very bone, Mrs. Peters groaned a groan. She'd take the eggs down from the shelf and whisper weakly to herself, "What persnickety young eaters are all my 7 little Peters! Look how many kids! And they all like their own foods." Mrs. Peter worked very hard. Now time went by as time will do, and as it passed the children grew. The problem was that as they grew, their appetites kept growing too, and not their choice of what to eat. Each child continued to repeat. They wanted what they had before. The trouble is, they wanted more. So as they grew bigger, they could eat more and more food, and so Mrs. Peters had to work harder and harder to make sure they were all fed. Uh-oh. What do you think is happening? Creamy oatmeal, pots of it, homemade bread, and lots of it, peeling apples by the peck. Mrs. Peters was a wreck. Look at her. Her house is so messy, and she's just trying to take care of her kids and her family. Okay. She wiped her brow and heaved a sigh. Another year was passing by. In fact, she realized with sorrow her birthday would arrive tomorrow. Drearily she shook her head and went up to bed. She's so tired and her house is so a little messy, and look at all her kids watching. They're all watching her go up to bed. What's gonna happen? All right. She thought the children had forgot her special day, but they had not. At crack of dawn they all began to carry out their secret plan. Mrs. Peters would be fed a birthday breakfast in her bed, a breakfast made of all the foods that kept them in such happy moods. Do you see them? They're all talking in their bedroom. We're going to make her breakfast in bed. Right. So while their weary mother slept, down the stairs the children crept, and from the cupboards and the shelves, happily they helped themselves. See them sneaking down the stairs. Cheerfully they chopped and stirred, preparing what they each preferred. But despite the pains they took, since nobody knew how to cook, to measure things or make them hot, the more they tried, the worse it got. Because their mommy had always made their food for them, they didn't know how to cook, so they just ended up making this big mess. You can see them. None of them know he made poor Mac turn grim and grumpy. In fact, the lumps got him so cross he dumped them in Jack's applesauce. This bothered Jack so much he threw it in the dough of Mary Lou, who tossed the mishmash that was made straight into Lucy's lemonade. You see, Matt got so mad that his oatmeal wasn't working that he put it in the applesauce. Or was it in the milk? Nope, it was in the applesauce. And then Jack got so mad that he poured it in the bread dough that Mary Lou was making, who got upset and put it in the pink lemonade. We'll see what happens next on this page. It says, and that put her in such a huff, she poured the icky, sticky stuff into the double frying pan that held the eggs of Fro and Flan, who flung the hodgepodge on the spot into the milk in Peter's pot. You can see Lucy poured it in the pan of eggs, and then they flung it into all the milk. Uh-oh, this is just becoming a mess. Oh no, what's gonna happen next? Oh no, look at the kitchen, such a mess. But when they saw what they had done, they wished they never had begun. They hardly slept a wink that night, and still things hadn't turned out right. And even though they tried their best, it hadn't worked. They were depressed. They'd be in trouble, too, unless they found some place to hide the mess. The oven seemed the perfect spot. They all forgot that it was still hot. They stuck the pot inside, and then they all went back to bed again. It's such a mess. So the pot with all the mishmash stuff in it, they hid it in the oven. The oven was still hot, so what do you think is going to happen? Let's see. The clock struck 6, but on they slept. Meanwhile their mother softly stepped down to the kitchen and smelled a smell. What could it be? She could not tell. It smelled so good she sniffed some more and opened up the oven door. What do you think she's going to see? She woke the children with her cries. They all came running in surprise. And in the kitchen what they found was Mrs. Peters dancing around. And in the oven, no mistake, a pink and plump and perfect cake. So when they mixed all that stuff together, they thought it was a mess and they thought it wasn't going to be good, so they hid it in the oven. But when she found it in the oven, it had turned into a cake because it was all the right ingredients. Okay. And as their mother danced with glee, she cried, "A birthday cake for me? A birthday cake so piping hot? To think I thought that you forgot. Now tell me, please, oh, how did you make this pink and plump and perfect cake, so high and light and smooth as silk?" "It's smooth as silk from all my milk," said Peter. Lucy said, "It's pink from all my lemonade, I think." "And from my apples," added Jack. "My oatmeal made it soft," said Mac. "My bread dough, too," said Mary Lowe. Said Fran and Flo. As for its size, it was our eggs that made it rise. Then everybody sniffed some more and danced around the kitchen floor. Do you see them all dancing? Mrs. Peters is so happy. They put the cake upon a dish and lit the candles. "Make a wish," the children cried, "before you blow," and Mrs. Peters did just so. And what is more, her wish came true, as birthday wishes often do. And from that day to this 'tis said, the Peters family all is fed. A single, simple meal, just one, a meal that's good for everyone, a meal on which they all agree, made from their secret recipe. They all take turns in mixing it, they all take turns in fixing it. It's thick to beat and quick to bake, it's fine to eat and fun to make. See how they're all working together? And look at Mrs. Peters over here. Mrs. Peters isn't doing anything. They're all making it for her now. It's Mrs. Peters' birthday cake. All right, well, that's the end. I hope you liked it.